Some of us were born with races to win. Races to get out, to get to somewhere better. Sometimes you race without money, without parents, without friends. But you always run for fear of ending up like the rest. You start out optimistic. You work really hard your first 3 years of high school, and you get accepted into your dream school. It feels as if nothing can stop you from achieving that nice lifestyle you've always dreamed of having. A place to call your own, money to pay the bills and live reasonably. But as you go on and the race becomes repetitive and relentless, you start to realize that you can't. You have to take care of your younger siblings. You have to worry about the bills and whether or not you're still going to have a house to come home to next month. You haven't even been 18 for a week, and you already know exactly what it's like in the real world. Partway through, you begin attending your dream school. You are shown how different you are from others your age. You find it hard to be around them. They're so full of optimism and the belief that love can help the world. But you've lost that hope many years ago. You've come to realize that believing in such things only leaves you disappointed and disillusioned. But still you try and try because you want to prove everyone wrong. You want to make your parents and husband proud and show them the strong and motivated person that they believe you are. And there's no way you're returning to the starting point. If you do that, you'll never start running again, and your worst fear will have come true. The fear of being stuck in the same hopeless place right back where you had begun. You recall everyone back home that hasn't even bothered to enter the race and how miserable and meaningless their lives are. The only thing that helps them survive the day is a bottle of vodka that promises to make all their problems and misery fade further and further away with each sip. You're striving for the normal life you see on TV, but for some reason life won't give it to you. You have to conquer this unfair race to get it. You're running against white people, rich people, and educated people. You have to run on your own while others are carried. But each time you take a step closer to the finish line, you remember why you're competing to begin with. If you reach it in one piece, all the challenges and hardships you have faced will have been worth it. You remind yourself of that overwhelming sense of accomplishment that will follow after the finish. That despite all the challenges you face being a girl from a small and impoverished town in the desert, you can finally rest in a sea of happiness.
In the sea of happiness, we found unity, love, hope, and prosperity. In our differences, we found similarities which bonded us together. We, the Nigerians, were filled with culture, love, happiness, and respect. Despite the number of tribal languages that existed, we found one common language, one common voice, one common heart. Suddenly, the one common heart we shared gradually began to wear away, as evil thoughts were cultivated and nourished. Our differences became apparent, and love turned to hatred. Religion, predominantly practiced by the Muslims and Christians, used to bring us together. Today, our unity has been destroyed by one radical Islamic group called Boko Haram. The majority of the population now live in tremendous fear and insecurity, sadness, and anxiety. I sit back each day and ask myself, what do we gain by killing ourselves and inducing fear in our lives? My heart was displaced when I heard of the terrible attacks on the Christian communities. Emerging from a Catholic home, I was terribly disturbed by the bombings which took place on Christmas Day and the New Year's Eve. Fear caught my heart on hearing about the bomb blast that had also occurred in Abuja. The United Nations building, located in the Federal Capital Territory, was destroyed and left so many injured. I began to panic, hoping that my family was protected. This group of people are inhumane, wicked, and heartless. Where are their hearts placed in between their chests? Don't they value human lives? What have the Christians done to deserve this brutality? My mind is barely at rest each moment of the day, thinking about my family and their welfare. The time has come for us to restore the unity and peace that have been long gone. We need not divide ourselves for any reason whatsoever. We are a country, we are a people, we are one. Let's give out some love, and we'll find peace sublime.
Give out some love, and you'll find peace sublime. I experienced this most when doing voluntary work for the first time. On my first day it was cold and windy. There wasn't a lot of time to set up, as the handicapped children I would work with would arrive soon. When they did, they were accompanied by their parents, and this meant interaction. But I had no idea what to do. I had to talk to them, but About what? This was my first camp as a supervisor. Without experience and with no idea what to do, I just stood there, waiting for their parents to leave. I was relieved when they finally did, but I didn't know that it was only the beginning. Just about all of the kids had at least some kind of disability, but they were able to live with it, and either this or their age made them the optimists they were. But it also made them stubborn. Whatever you'd ask them to do, they would either happily accept or stubbornly refuse. There was no way of convincing them if they had made up their mind. So what you needed was a strong, a forceful hand. And this meant that I was in trouble again. I was not used to having authority, and whenever I had the feeling I was leading something, I would struggle and ask myself if it was what I wanted. A question always answered with no. So there I was, not knowing how to interact with their parents, nor how to keep the children under control. But it worked out, partially because every activity was followed by either a hug, smile, or cry. A smile or hug would just give you back the love you gave them. A cry would give you a moment to be caring, and was followed by receiving even more love. So after the camp I returned home, not only with a bunch of new friends, but also with the ability to give and receive love through the smallest of gestures. And we need love, that's all it is.
We need love, that's all it is. I wish these had been the words my father told me. Instead it was, if you tell anyone else in the family, then all you'll ever be is a faggot. He said this to me on a long bitter drive down a highway that should have been repaved years ago. When I heard it, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, half hoping to smell the familiar scent of tecate, or cardboard boxed wine, or even whiskey, even though he was driving, anything to justify him saying this, anything to believe it wasn't my papa. I was a Hispanic queer kid in a predominantly Hispanic Catholic place. I was used to the name, and it had been a long time since I'd even felt anything when it was used. Since I came out to my family, I wasn't a stranger to the yelling, the cussing, the slamming of fists on wooden walls, but what he said that day, that went deep, and will stay inside me forever. It was the first time in my life I'd experienced real fear, not fear of the outside, like my mom leaving, or of her getting sicker, or of my father's drinking. It was a fear that was inside of me. I was afraid of me, that my sexuality was all I could be, that my guitar, my songs, my love of learning, my poems and moments spent helping my family would all fall away, leaving only the angry label, fag, to represent myself to the people I loved most. With time, my mother grew from feeling a great pain that I probably won't ever forgive myself for, to an acceptance and love that I will never forget. She always stood with me, and on one occasion, after a particularly bad night with me and my dad, she went up to him, the man she'd known since she was 17, and told him to get help or get out. He wasn't going anywhere, but it felt good to know she loved me enough to say it. One day, Mama casually told me that she'd told my very Catholic grandma, who I loved very much, that I liked girls and boys. I was horrified and asked if my grandma was really angry at me. My mom responded, "I don't know. Did she seem any different in church yesterday?" She hadn't. At that moment, I felt so loved and safe. These were women in my life that might not have known what it felt like to be called a fag, but they knew what it was like to suffer from forbidden crushes, from discrimination because you were from a minority group, and the pain that comes from alcohol abuse. Most importantly, though, they knew me, for who I was inside, not what others called me. Ever since then, I've always known that nothing, no one can hurt my spirit, because that day in church, nothing was different, except maybe she hugged me just a little tighter and said she loved me a little more. Love can conquer hate every time.
Alejandra Franco, New Mexico, United States.
Chisom Ibekwe from Nigeria.
Yarno Rebahi, Belgium.
Marisol Fernandez y Mora, New Mexico, the U.S.